from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on AgDay, EPA announcing new label restrictions for dicamba in 2018. Plus, these mega mergers mean more moving of familiar products. Agribusiness looking at the week ahead.
What we want to see now, hopefully with an open week of harvest here, is will those numbers from the field confirm those numbers from the USDA?
Machinery Pete sticks to the unique at auction, and small ruminants can pay off big on small farms.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. After back-and-forth discussions, the Environmental Protection Agency and chemical manufacturers have come to an agreement on label changes for dicamba use in 2018. The manufacturers voluntarily agreeing to label changes to reduce the potential for drift damage with over-the-top use of dicamba. Betsy Gibbon joining us now with more.
Clinton, BASF, DuPont, and Monsanto have voluntarily agreed to label changes for over-the-top dicamba use next year. Those changes include letting only certified applicators with training and those under their supervision to use dicamba by labeling the products as restricted use, requiring farmers to keep records of dicamba use. Labeling dicamba products can only be applied when wind speeds are below 10 miles per hour to reduce drift potential, limiting when the product may be used during the day, preventing cross-contamination by including text on the label about cleaning out tanks, and there's heightened awareness about contaminating sensitive crops by using more language and record keeping.
You know, UT Extension, UT Research, we are educators, we are not regulators. And so when we get called in, we're not going to help, place blame on who did what. What we're going in to do is help these growers assess what problem they have.
Monsanto also responding to the news. Scott Partridge, Monsanto Vice President of Global Strategy, says the company is pleased with the restricted use, saying, quote, "I don't believe this will limit farmer access to technology. It certainly places new requirements, but restricted use isn't new to farmers." From there, the EPA will continue to evaluate whether the changes will be enough. The labels will be on in 2018, just in time for the new growing season.
Thanks, Betsy. Also in business news, chips are starting to fall into place for Bayer buying out Monsanto. That's after another major acquisition announced last week could clear the way for regulators to sign off on that major deal. Bayer announcing Friday it's selling its row crop seeds and traits business to BASF. The buy includes the Liberty Link brand and the technology, including the research and development tied to it. The price tag, $7 billion. Bloomberg's reporting that's 15 times BASF's earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. The company say the transaction not only includes the intellectual property and facilities, but also the more than 1,800 employees around the world tied to that business. The reports all say that the three companies will operate as business as usual until the Bayer-Monsanto acquisition goes through, which is expected to happen in early 2018. U.S. negotiators officially offering the Sunset Clause proposal during NAFTA negotiations last week. The Sunset Clause would bring NAFTA to an end after 5 years unless the three countries involved agreed to extend it. Secretary Ross was asked about the Sunset Clause during an event last week saying, quote, "That's our proposal." A coalition of animal rights and food safety groups filing a federal lawsuit last week against Iowa's AgDay law. The law making it a crime to conduct undercover investigations of farms and slaughterhouses. Groups like PETA say that kind of law is unconstitutional. A spokesman for the state attorney general saying they just received the complaint and weren't able to comment on it yet. A new report from Rabobank showing the pork sector could grow 11% between 2017 and 2025. That growth supported by increasing production efficiency and additional processing capacity. A lot of that growth centered around exports. Now, Sterling Liddell of Rabobank saying that Mexico is currently one of the biggest export markets for U.S. pork, adding that Mexico is continuing to grow its own sow inventories and slaughter plants, which means it's only a matter of time before their domestic production also grows. Let's take a look around farm country. Cindy Clausen joining us today with crop comments. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Clinton. Craig Swenson near River Falls, Wisconsin sent us this picture. He is just getting started at chopping corn. Now Craig says, as you can see, the stalks are still green and the fields are wet in his area of Wisconsin. USDA says 58% of the state's corn crop is mature. That's 16 points below the 5-year average. And this touching photo comes from Katie Safley over in western Missouri. She says when Papa shows up, it's time for a ride to the elevator and a treat at the mini mart. It's a farm girl at her happiest. We love seeing photos like this. Coming up, we'll have a look at your national forecast, but for now, here's a look at some hometown temps.
This is Machinery Pete, inviting you to check out my new website, machinerypete.com, offering farmers tens of thousands of used equipment listings to search. Let Machinery Pete help you find and value your next piece of used equipment.
We'll get you started for the marketing week ahead with a panel discussion at the Agribusiness Desk, and later Machinery Pete stops by.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, we're going to talk about an interesting combine sold on a southern Michigan auction last week.
And small in size, but it can be plenty big in payoff. Rally behind ruminants later on Ag Day.
Unlock the power of ag technology this December in Indianapolis at the first ever Ag Tech Expo. Learn all about it at farmjournalagtech.com.
In agribusiness, plenty of grain in markets to end the week. Let's get details from the Florida CME in Chicago.
Soybeans were up. Futures broke out to resume that uptrend. November beans hit that $10 mark when we saw the deferred months already get there right after the USDA report. The market is very strong, and I expect it to continue to consolidate here and perhaps even move higher. We're going to be watching closely on Monday for that crop progress report, and then we'll start to get more information as the harvest comes in. The yield numbers are going to dictate really which way this market is going to go. As for now, though, it looks really strong, and it's bringing along corn and wheat. Wheat was also on the rise. Now, it rebounded off of recent lows after that USDA report. It just seems like the market had been sinking for so long and staying in those lows. It had nowhere else to go but up. But we got to be careful because the short-term trend is really to the downside. So, and it remains lower right now, just technically speaking. So maybe the market can be vulnerable, but let's not take away the fact that we looked really good today. So all the grains were higher here at the end of this week. Today in cattle, it was steady, really traded on both sides of the market. The hog market especially has really taken on a trend and hasn't let go, whether it was on the downside and the upside. And it looks like the upside is starting to win now. So the bulls are starting to gain control of this market and pushing it higher. And certainly at the end of this week, the market looks very good. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk, we have Brian Bassing, Advanced Trading, Naomi Bloom, Stuart Peterson. Thank you both for being here. All right, getting ready to start the week. Last week, we kind of had some big reports from USDA. How does that play into your thought process this week? Brian, we'll start with you.
Probably the biggest thing, Clinton, is the market was surprised last week by those corn yields being larger than expected.
Sure.
And a bit surprised with the bean yields dropping down. What we want to see now, hopefully with an open week of harvest here, is will those numbers from the field confirm those numbers from the USDA? And so the market's going to be very attuned because we're probably going to have about half the bean harvest yet to go nationwide and about 2/3 of the corn harvest. So really the focus is on yields now for the U.S. this week, weather permitting.
Yeah, weather permitting, that's a big part of it, right, Naomi?
Absolutely, just to see the harvest progress. And so looking today, we're going to have crop progress numbers coming out this afternoon, and then we're also going to be having export inspections.
Sure.
So for the grain markets themselves, we don't have a lot to actually move the market this week. However, we have enough to range trade the market and keep the market just kind of moving mostly sideways, a little bit higher, but in and of itself, we need to make sure that we can get the exports going, and then also, as he said, keeping an eye on harvest and then seeing what the yields truly are.
Yeah, and Brian, it's that time of year where we still have a lot of work left in the field, but yet some of that ability to protect our crop is starting to dwindle, right?
I think one thing that we're emphasizing with regards to crop insurance, Clinton, the crop insurance harvest period runs through the month of October. So as the month of October is completed, there is no longer any crop insurance price protection as such.
Okay.
When we move into November, obviously if the markets were to go higher, then the crop insurance becomes a moot point. But remember, On November 1st, there's no more crop insurance protection. So as a grower, you just want to keep that in mind in terms of your strategies.
Yeah, keep that in mind. There's a couple other big reports this week, though. Cattle, dairy, right?
Yeah, Friday we're going to see cattle and feed report, and then we also have a milk production report on Friday. So heading into Friday, we'll probably see livestock markets have some volatility and just finish up trading ranges ahead of those reports. Both are probably expected to not be anything bullish, I would say that. So just be mindful of protecting values that are there, and it would be a pleasant surprise if both of those reports gave us something positive.
All right, well, I appreciate you both being here and getting us started on the right foot this week. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
To talk with Brian one-on-one, call Advanced Trading at 800-664-2314 or head online to advanced-trading.com. To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779 or visit stewartpeterson.com. Ag Day weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to Ag Day on this Monday morning. Cindy Clausen in, looking at rainfall over the past week, and you can see really some distinct spots getting most of the rain.
Yeah, and notice it's mainly in the east. Check this out. Let's take a look at some of these amounts. And we'll start off down in the southeast, where obviously lots of rain fell as Nate was moving up on shore. And so a lot of it over into southern parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and even into the panhandle of Florida. The other couple of spots that we had a fair amount of rain are right here in parts of Kentucky, and then over in Iowa. A lot of rain fell there, where we were seeing 2 to 3 inches or even more in some spots. Now, what that did to the drought monitor, not a ton. We actually did see some improvement in the northwestern parts there, Montana into the Dakotas, but we've actually seen that dryness spreading a little bit further to the east. Let's take a look at the jet stream. As we head through the week, we do see kind of a weak trough moving through the northeast. Some warmer temperatures for the west, but watch what happens as we get into the middle part of the week. Another trough digging into the west. That's going to bring some colder air, some pretty warm air in the east as that ridge really starts to build. And then as we continue on through the weekend, we'll see that trough moving across the entire U.S., so there'll be some stormy weather moving in there. We'll see some heat building into the southwest. Let's take a look at the temperatures overall this week. We're expecting fairly warm temperatures, especially in the northeastern part of the country, above normal for most of the country, a little bit on the cool side as we see that trough in the northwest. Precipitation wise, we're going to be seeing above normal over in the Great Lakes and in the northwest, but kind of normal to below normal in most of the rest of the country, a little bit wet in much of southern Florida. Now, as far as the 30-day outlook, looks like it's going to be on the warm side in the eastern half of the country, as well as parts of the southwest, cool and wet, of course, in the Pacific Northwest. And as far as precipitation goes, obviously that's a big one, as a lot of us are trying to get that harvest done. Looks like we'll have some drier weather from the northeast down into parts of the Ohio, Tennessee Valley and parts of the southern plains. Wet, that's not a bad thing for the drought over in some of those drier areas in the Dakotas and Montana. But if you are trying to get some field work done, maybe not such a good thing. Above normal in Florida as well, but fairly normal as you get to the southwestern United States and over towards the Great Lakes. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Yellow Jacket, Colorado, sunny and warmer for you today with a high of 66 degrees. Bowling Green, Missouri, sunny and warmer with a high of 64. And Blue Bell, Pennsylvania, sunny and cooler with a high of 64.
All right, up next, Machinery Pete checks in, plus want to raise livestock but don't have a lot of available land?
I'm Charles Denny, small in size but a big part of Tennessee agriculture. We're talking small ruminants like goats and sheep, and how you need just a few acres to raise them. That story from Hickman County, Tennessee, coming up on Ag Day.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Timing is often everything when it comes to buying and selling equipment. Well, Machinery Pete has an explanation from his home office in Minnesota.
An interesting trend I've been watching on the auction market the last 18 months been developing is folks paying a premium for the nicest condition stuff, but the average condition stuff prices there sliding. Now, a good example of this was a farm auction last Thursday in southeast Michigan by our friends at Meadema Auctioneering. And here's a picture of the combine on the sale, a super clean 2010 John Deere 9770 STS, 1,881 engine hours, sold for $123,000. Now you might ask, well, how's that compare? Well, so far this year, the average auction price on a 2010 model 9770, $93,279. And that average is actually down 8.1% from the average last year on a 2010 model. But again, $123,000, very strong for the nicest one. In fact, that's the second highest auction price I've seen this year on a 2010 model 9770 in the U.S. The only higher one came on an August 10th farm auction in north central Iowa, where a 2010 model with only 1,451 engine hours on it sold for $130,000. An interesting note on that sale, that was the day the USDA crop report came out that drove commodity prices down. So a tough day to have a farm auction. But even so, the price on the combine, $130,000, very strong. The other prices were a little soft. So again, for the very nicest condition stuff, still seeing pretty strong auction prices.
All right, thanks, Greg. Rolling down to the Texas State Fair, Chevy celebrating 100 years of truck building. The company showing off its 2018 Chevy Silverado, calling it the Centennial Edition. These custom bow tie and custom trim trucks come with plenty of add-ons.
Unique paint, Centennial blue, unique badging on the doors. The spray and bed liner features the Centennial logo. The all-weather mats inside feature the Centennial logo. A chrome silver bow tie in the steering wheel. And basically fully loaded out trucks. And we think our Chevy truck loyalists are going to be very excited about this. And Chevy Truck wants to make sure we deliver the products they need. So whether it's a small or large farm, whatever your livestock needs are, we are going to deliver a Chevy truck that lets you get that job done.
The specialty Silverado and Colorado trucks are available starting this month and in November, respectively. Maybe you don't have room or time for cattle, but still want to raise some animals. Next, the benefits of small ruminants.
In the country, brought to you by Kubota. Learn more about Kubota SSV Series skid steers at Kubota.com or demo one at your local Kubota dealer today.
Tennessee is a leading state in producing goats and sheep, and herds of these grazing animals are a familiar sight in many pastures. The small ruminants work well on small farms. In this report from UT Institute of Agriculture, Charles Denny shows how a little land can still be a successful agricultural enterprise.
On a rainy day when the remnants of Hurricane Irma blow through, this goat herd smartly prefers a barn instead of a field, though a few hungry souls ventured out to pasture. This Hickman County farm is just 33 acres, about half in forage and half in pretty woods, but that works just fine for these animals.
I cross them back and forth. They love to go in. Every so many weeks I let them in to eat the leaves and small bushes, and then back over on the grass side in the meantime. So I have both sides producing something.
Taniel Tyner says goat farming is like a hobby where she makes a little money. She raises a mix of meat and milk goats, 37 head in all, including this beauty named Wild Thing.
And then you pull it this way toward your herd.
Tyner used funds from a Tennessee Department of Agriculture enhancement grant to build this catch pen and hay barn. For her, overall herd health is a priority.
The biggest problem with raising goats is parasites.
Yeah.
So, like I said, being able to put them up and catch them, check their eyelids and their gums is what we look at for health.
Small ruminant production has certainly become more advanced in modern day farming. It used to be we'd just turn animals loose to eat whatever they wanted. Now a smart producer is concerned with nutrition and marketing.
They're looking at this certainly to make some money. So when they're doing that, and this opportunity now, the market's pretty good.
UT Extension's Troy Duggar has seen a spike in the number of goat and sheep producers in Hickman County in recent years. The hills and hollows in these parts make this type of agriculture possible.
The way our land is here, it is well suited for all kinds of livestock, and especially on some small acreage type things for goat producers and sheep producers as well.
Duggar will soon lead a UT and TSU Extension Master Small Ruminant Workshop where producers can learn about forage, food safety, and genetics. Small animals on just a little land. It's a combination that works here, and smart herd management is key to its continued success. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. UT Ag Research is hosting a workshop on small ruminants later this month. That's all the time we have this morning. Sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
Ag Day, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.